Alright, what's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Tokenicer and I'm here to bring you guys in-depth news, analysis, and insights from the digital asset space, along with covering the progressive tokenization of the world. So I'm bringing you guys once again another Terramoon exclusive from my weekly show on there, Tea Time with Token. So in this week's episode of Tea Time, we didn't actually do a deep dive or a breakdown of any specific project. But instead, we actually had a one-on-one discussion followed by a live community AMA with one of the smartest and hardest working researchers in the utility token space, covering a range of projects from XRP to XDC to Quant, Constellation, and much more. And as always, if you guys do enjoy what you heard from this interview, along with the previous shows that are on my YouTube, be sure to join Terramoon Ventures for more weekly shows just like this and everything else we bring to the table with my discount code TOKENICE for 25% off. That's TOKENICE, and as always, they'll be linked right down in the description below. And as usual, before we start, I just gotta remind everyone that nothing you hear from either me or my guests is any form of financial or investment advice. But now that we got that out of the way, let's get right into it.
I think it was in the end of near the middle of 2020 or something that I started getting into other. I really started understanding quant network. Then I started looking into XDC network, and I understood. And then I started researching the trade finance side of things, it just led me to multiple rabbit holes. So that's why I'm not a maxi to one network, as I believe it's going to be a network. It's going to be a regulated network of networks that is what is going to form the regulated internet of value, where we have, it's not just one network that's going to succeed. It's going to be multiple regulated networks that are going to succeed. And so there's so many good ones, but my favorite are Quant, XRP, XDC. I see some XLM, and just the main ISO 222 interoperable, because I'm a big regulated finance, trade finance guy. That's what makes me sleep at night, is knowing that I have all this proof for my research behind these assets, compared to just entering these shit coins that say they're doing stuff but they're not actually doing stuff, etc., etc.
Yeah, there's actually utility and application backing the value behind these assets, right?
Exactly. When regulations come down, the way I see it is it's all fun and games until the regulation hammer comes down. They start regulating, centralized exchanges. Shitcoin liquidity dies out because they have nowhere to sell the tokens. And then it's basically anything that's interoperable with traditional finance that can pass the regulated standard will survive.
Yep, pretty much. These regulated assets are much more likely to kind of survive after the whole regulation stuff kick in. And they kind of take the liquidity away from these shitcoins from these unregulated exchanges. And we're already kind of beginning to see the first phase of that rollout, with regulations coming in, seeing Biden coming out with an executive order, and then the MICA proposal coming in from the EU. So do you have anything to sort of say about regulations just kind of slowly coming in at the moment now?
Yeah, I think it's a step in the right direction. And a lot of people hate regulations, but that regulatory clarity is finally going to allow small medium enterprises and companies and enterprises to actually go full throttle green light into these markets, as it's still a gray area with the current structure. There is no clarity. In the States, I just can't believe it's 2022 and there's still no goddamn regulatory clarity. With that SEC lawsuit and all just the jokes, how the ETH free pass, and if I would have looked back in 2018, we thought 2021, 2022, oh, we're gonna be loaded, it's gonna be XRP is gonna be $10-15, blah blah blah, and here we are, still just trying to get regulatory clarity so businesses can participate in the blockchain revolution.
Yeah, that's definitely been a really annoying point, just seeing all the kind of barriers still set up, not letting other institutions and enterprises enter the space quite yet. And I guess we're seeing regulations kind of becoming more clear in some other countries, but the US being the largest economy, still, we're kind of waiting on them to make their decision on how they choose to regulate this space. But at the end of the day, crypto's kind of a global asset class. And well, since you're since you're so big on XDC, I'm sure you know they're based in Singapore and everything. So what are kind of the rules around there in Singapore?
I don't know the rules specifically per se, but the digital, like, there's a difference between a digital asset and a security. Like, for example, Japan, they classify cryptos as digital assets, and that's a completely separate asset class compared to a security. And that's what it's like in Singapore as well. And you know, the United States is the only one that is calling crypto secure. Well, the majority of them securities. Well, a lot of them are, but you know, XRP is not a security. It's a neutral bridge digital asset. And yeah, here I'm gonna just show the red flags, so just to give some people something to look at while we're talking here. Let's talk here.
Yeah, because you've done a lot of diving on the whole SEC lawsuit, right?
There's some mind maps you guys can look at just to see some red flags behind the XRP lawsuit. So what me and another researcher did is we took about 20 hours. So you guys, so everyone can click the link, and then if they want to retweet it, go right ahead and retweet it. But it's what we did is we took the physical document, some of the physical documents. Like, there was way too many to keep going. I just lost juice after 20 hours. We were like, okay, yeah, this is enough. This is good enough. But we took the physical documents and then interlinked them. So I created the big web. My buddy XX there, that other researcher, he created the white map of just showing the intertwinedness and like red flags behind the SEC officials, and the proof that we thought, you know, like, hey man, this looks like manipulation. Like, an investigation needs to be done into that side of things, because you know, Bill Hinman taking $15 million from Simpson Thatcher, and then Jay Clayton, as soon as he left the SEC, he goes over to a Bitcoin and Ethereum hedge fund, multi-billion-dollar Bitcoin and Ethereum hedge fund. Like, oh, okay, yeah, no red flags there. Because, you know, what do they want to do? Because as soon as XRP is used in the banking and used for cross-border payments, well, that eliminates all the fees from the current correspondent banking system. And when you think about the current correspondent banking system and the legacy bankers, you know, they're robbing the system of billions of dollars of fees a year. And, you know, when XRP gets regulatory clarity, if it got regulatory clarity, well, they could be cutting down costs. Like Bank of America here, I'll pull it up here. I've got a screenshot of them saying they could save billions of dollars a year by using XRP for settlement. And it's like, okay, well, it's really funny that XRP is a decentralized token, and they call it centralized. But, like, you know, I've got documents from the IMF calling XRP and XLM decentralized. I got a World Bank document saying XRP is decentralized. I got a Financial Action Task Force document that says XRP is a decentralized currency. So, like, the SEC is the only one that labeled it as a security because of the manipulation behind the case, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a really fair point. Well, I've got not the nicest words for Jay Clayton, so we'll skip over that part. But
yeah, we'll move on.
Yeah,
damn right.
At Terramoon here, most of us do come from, I guess, the Constellation community and, well, supporting the hypergraph. And I know, you being a regulated researcher, you've done your work on Constellation and are quite a fan yourself. So do you want to share some of your thoughts?
But yeah, I think Constellation's a sleeping giant. You know, partner with the DoD, securing data. You know, when you think about smart cities and how much data needs to be moved, is absolutely nuts when you break it down. How many gigabytes or whatever, zettabytes, whatever, it's like 26 decimal places to the zero to represent how much data is. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, data just it's going to continue to grow exponentially, right? Just as long as technology evolves, we're going to have more and more data out there. And right now it's just data that's kind of being used sitting there in these siloed systems. And what Constellation's doing is really just letting all these IT infrastructures interoperate and bringing the proper cybersecurity we need, because as time goes on, we're going to have more and more sensitive data come on to the blockchain, right?
Yeah. So with Constellation, you know, with the state channels and being able to take, you know, massive amounts of data and sort it and be able to pick what data you want, you know, I think, like, I can't wait for the mainnet to come out to see how it all gets put together, and we start seeing more and more chains and seeing interoperability between multiple networks. I think it's a really revolutionary network.
Yeah, for sure. They're definitely doing something very different from what just about any of these crypto projects are doing, and really making their focal point of the project disrupting data. Mm-hmm. Rather than all the, I guess, like trade finance stuff we see, which of course is still important, but blockchain's so much more than just money, as we know, right?
No, exactly. And that's where the mainstream people get mixed up. You know, they take the mainstream terminology, cryptocurrency, and they think that's all, like they paint it with a broad brush, and they think that's all crypto is good for is a currency. But they don't actually look deeper into the underlying technology. That's why I like telling people, hey, there's a difference between cryptocurrency and then like blockchain distributed ledger technology. Because, you know, if you're keyword researching Google for cryptocurrencies changing the world, you're not going to get real sources. You're going to get just garbage information. But if you actually search up distributed ledger technology evolution and just really start digging down with the right proper terminologies, you can get so much better information.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like the whole cryptocurrency term being the mainstream buzzword, I feel like similar to like how NFTs are associated with digital art, it doesn't really do the space much justice in associating with such specific terms when they're actually so much more than just digital art and internet money.
Yeah, exactly. And like that's and then that's where like, so what I've learned these last 4 years that I can't stress enough is like entertainment and the mainstream media is so toxic. Like it's such a toxic culture, because you think about the power hungry, the 1%, you know, they built this economy to where it is, and they have all this power behind the media that, you know, they push out their narrative, right? They push out their narrative. So there's so many blindsided surface dwellers that take this mainstream media narrative as gold, as they're telling us the truth. There's nothing more than mainstream media. And it's just so sad because, you know, for example, my grandparents, you know, they watched the news their whole lives, and that was their hobby, that was their thing. And my grandparents never got rich from the information they got. What they were getting fed all these years is keeping them in the past. It's not letting them focus on the future. And so I was really lucky to have, you know, the last 4 years with my grandpa when he was around, where he would tell me what's on the mainstream media, and here I am deep diving the internet, finding the actual stuff going on and comparing what I found to the narrative that they're pushing. So I have somebody that's living in the mainstream narrative able to tell me what's going on in there, and then I could tell them what's actually going on. And it was actually crazy to see the different amounts of information that you can get from utilizing the internet compared to just listening to the garbage on the mainstream.
Yeah, for sure. I think having someone like that, like being someone so deep in all this research, having someone like that in your life is definitely important, to kind of just have that person who is the kind of person who focuses on mainstream media, just so you can kind of like get those sort of reality checks to see what mainstream media is seeing nowadays versus all the stuff you're diving into. Because you really need that other perspective of where the average person is kind of thinking.
Totally. And yeah, and then also, you know, it's really hilarious. Like I find it the most convenient stuff that, you know, all this stuff, this COVID-19 stuff happened. And, you know, it's taken over the news media for the last, you know, 2 years. And it's like, what would the news be covering if that didn't exist? You know, what? And like, if you really take a step back, it's like they're just pumping out all this insecure, like it creates an insecurity into the mainstream people that are absorbing that information. You know, they have anxiety, they're worried of everything, they're in fear. You know, this narrative that they're pushing in the mainstream, it's created a fear wave. So people hate each other. It created a divide. It created a divide between the unvaccinated and the vaccinated, and then it created people to, because when I heard this thing before, is how do you convince an entire population to accept a new, you know, a new world order, like a new digital system? Well, one, people have to be in fear. The only way you can change a whole population is in fear. When everyone's in fear, they're willing to accept a new normal. And this is where the digitalization push is coming in, because now everyone's in fear. Everyone's the whole world, whether in the whole enterprise and trade finance, you know, they're all see a need to digitalize, because the current system is breaking down. The current banking system is breaking down. The fiat system is breaking down. They printed so much money out of thin air. Everything's just breaking down. There's so much fees. It's so inefficient. Manual processes. So now, you know, we're getting to the near, I'm hoping the near end. I hope within the next year we can be done with this COVID crap and we can be moved on to the next digital future. But, you know, it's just one big psyop where they're convincing everyone that things are ready to be changed, and I think we're getting close.
Yeah, definitely. The whole idea of how COVID was, I guess you could say, in a sense, an inside job for the digitalization of everything, because as we saw with the start of the pandemic and everything was, or I guess everyone was isolated, and basically physical contact was non-existent at that point. Everything was digital. So that was kind of like the first step of it. I guess once everyone got vaccinated and everything, most of mainstream media had thought, okay, we're going back to normal and all that now. But if you really look around, you'll see all that's changed with the terms of digitalizing other parts of our daily lives. And we're seeing that to a whole new level with the development of CBDCs that have been going on over the past year that mainstream media just doesn't cover enough of.
Yeah, well, actually, CBDCs is crazy. I was finding documents from like 2017, the idea started. So it's really, really cool to see that central bank digital currencies were created 2 years before the pandemic. You know, people just think, oh, cryptocurrencies are for digital money. But what I like, from just sharing some of the stuff that I learned on the regulated trade finance side of things. So the supply chain, like, let's talk about the supply chain. Everyone, supply chain is back the fuck up. The supply chain is broken. There's digital island problems through ports around all the world. And what the digital island problems is, all these different ports run on different systems. They're not interoperable. Everything is paper. 99% of global trade, invoices, transfer records, warehouse record receipts, all the documents are paper. But the problem is paper, you know, paper is interoperable, but it has manual, it's manual as hell. So people have to verify it in different spots, you know, ports, receivers. So it's all being verified. I read up to 200, so a transaction going from China to Canada, paper can move hands up to 200 times. Paper gets lost, paper gets damaged. And then you think about these carriers, these ship carriers that have 24,000 containers on it, and all that is paper. All that in the trade is paper, and that's manual, expensive. And so what we're seeing now is the digitalization of the supply chain, digitalization of the electronic transfer records. And by doing this, it's creating an automated, flawless supply chain that's now reducing the cost. So for example, moving containers from China to Canada, They say the cost of just using paper alone for those documents is as much as moving the containers. So now, if you picture that on a global level, if you took all the paper in global trade in 1 year, it would equal to about 4 billion trade documents. You stack that high, 520,000 meters high of paper.
Wow.
And 520,000 meters high. So I was like, okay, well, so I created this visual. I thought it would be cool to visualize, okay, well, how damn high is that? So I took 520,000 meters and I divided that by the height of the Statue of Liberty. That is equal to 5,500 statues of liberty stacked on top of each other.
Jesus. Wow.
And they say that's more than 7,800 tons of paper documents are processed, and that's the equivalent of 80 Boeing 747 Freightliners filled with paper.
Yeah,
so
and then
yeah,
you just go and think like how many trees that's the equivalent to as well, right?
Yeah, they say 500,000. That's what they quoted in that document, and 500,000. And so the current system is paper, and this is for my deepest thing of doing the trade finances. There's a digitalization transformation happening, and the whole world is asleep because nobody's researching traditional finance. It's goddamn boring. Like I'm reading so many PDFs that are so boring, but it's like the stuff I piece together is like, holy fuck. It's like, what the hell? Are you kidding me? Like even the G7 here, okay, this way, guys. The G7, creating a modern digital trade ecosystem, cutting the cost and complexity of trade. And then if you look into it, you read the highlighted parts, paperless trade facilitation could add as much as $6 trillion in extra exports by 2026. Paperless trade could reduce costs across the G7 by 76%. They say using electronic transfer records could reduce time spent on cross-border trade by 81%. And then it can reduce cross-border compliance from 25 days to less than 1 day. And so this is what is happening with the digitalization. And then, so what I got into is I started following the International Chamber of Commerce. And if you guys don't know about the ICC, let me read up this here. I'll get a screenshot from my research to show how big they are. Because I didn't realize how big they are until I actually really studied the ICC and was like, wow. So the ICC, they represent 45 million companies, 1 billion employees, and there are 100 plus countries across the globe. They are the voice of business at intergovernmental level. So the ICC is a powerhouse consortium for companies, small, medium enterprises all across the board. The ICC is working on creating standards for cross-jurisdiction, for multinational standards, basically. And so the ICC created what is called the Digital Standard Initiative, the DSI. Okay, and this is all about digitalizing trade documents, digitalizing trade processes in the trade finance industry. Yeah, so let me know if it's too boring. Like I just try to give like some really deep alpha information here. So if it's too boring, you want me to move on, just let me know. If everyone's enjoying it.
No, I think this is important. I think everyone in here enjoys these kind of deep dives anyways.
Okay, sounds good. So the ICC created the DSI initiative, okay? The DSI initiative is broken down between two parts. There's one part of it, which is the Trade Trust, which is a framework. Trade Trust is a trade finance network that's built on Ethereum and Hyperledger. And it's an interoperable framework for digital documents in the trade finance. They're out in Singapore as well. And then it also breaks down to another side. The other side is ITFA's DNI initiative, which is Digital Negotiable Instruments Initiative. And that DNI initiative is for digital documents And what they utilize is XDC network. And that's why XDC network is, I believe XDC network isn't listed on any tier 1 exchanges yet, because the legislation isn't available for these banks to really start entering and accumulating. So they're not going to let a bunch of mainstream people load up their bags before the small medium enterprises and the banks are ready to go with that. ICC, look, I just broke down the ICC's DSI initiative. There's Trade Trust, and then there's ITFA's DNI initiative, which also ITFA has another initiative called the Trade Finance Distribution Initiative, where you see all these major banks, trade originators, and they utilize XDC as the blockchain for the trade finance distribution. So you can search up the Trade Finance Initiative on Google, you go to the website, you go to the members, and you can see the only blockchain network of that consortium of banks and all the players in there is XDC network. Well, XDC network is used because there's an application layer. There's an application layer, so anyone can build on XDC. And there's an application layer for digital documents called Inigio. What Inigio does is it takes documents and it attaches it to a blockchain, to the XDC network blockchain, and uses XDC for settlement of that document. So you can send a document anywhere in the world using a decentralized platform for a fraction of a cent, and it settles in 2 seconds. And it's interoperable with Swift. So that's the ICC has those two pieces. I also created a visualization. I'm going to share here just 1 sec so I can really break it down, because I find it really cool that I can map out my mind, and that's what I'm trying to do, is to try and teach people this shit that's being hidden. The digitalization of global trade finance industry, that's what I called this piece of art. And so it breaks down, it shows how the DSI is broken down between Trade Trust and the DNI initiative and the TFD initiative on the ITFA side. And those 2 initiatives utilize XDC network. Trade tech is so get this, guys, with these trade finance ecosystems, NFTs, well, why would they use NFTs? Is because you take a real world asset like a commodity and you tokenize it. You tokenize its value. So say you have $1 million worth of grain you need to sell in the global markets. Well, you go to Trade Tech. Trade Tech is an NFT tokenization trade asset marketplace. And it allows you to tokenize your asset and then sell it in the global marketplace. And that's utilized by the trade finance distribution. So there's a bunch of trade originators on there, and they're literally tokenizing real world assets and uploading it to this NFT marketplace that any buyers or sellers can go and participate in. And then a little bit more to this picture is down there, you guys see Inigio. Inigio is the digital document provider that creates digital documents that are MLETR compatible. What is MLETR? So there's a thing called the United Nations Commission on International Trade Law, UNICITRAL. They are the standard, they're the law standard setters for international finance, like trade finance and just international law. And so they've created model law on electronic transfer records, MLETR. And this is a law that is what they're trying to get countries around the world to adopt. Because the problem is with jurisdictions around the world, they all go off this thing called the BOE 1882, Bills of Exchange Act 1882. And yes, it's literally from the 1800s. And it's validating that trade documents in global trade need to be on wet ink. They need to be with paper, or else they're not valid. There is no legislation that has validated electronic transfer records in global trade. And so what MLETR does is it validates electronic transfer records and allows them to be used in global trade. Yeah, so that MLETR standard, there's 7 jurisdictions here. I'll pull up here. There's 7 jurisdictions that are now MLETR compliant with their legislation. So the UK is the first G7 to adopt MLETR into their legislation with the digital economy agreement between the UK and Singapore. And this was on February 25th, 2022. And I was jumping because right there, boom, MLETR updated into the legislation. So now this is a start, because now small medium enterprises in the UK can now send MLETR compliant digital documents to Singapore, Dubai, Bahrain, and other MLETR. There's a couple other small ones that I can't remember the name off the top of my head. But yeah, so that is, it's a key word that should be researched so you can understand how, like, just how it's being structured, because it's crazy. It's not talked about, and the fact that I've even learned this much about it is it's awesome, because I can tell other people to research this shit. Because it's like, you know, we've all heard of ISO 222, the messaging interoperable trade finance standard, but you go way higher. You go to like the highest, the United Nations, putting out this model law for electronic transfer records, so countries can all adopt legislation that has the same interoperable standards of digital documents.
Yeah, so seeing the UN come into this, come into the whole digitalization thing is really something to pay attention for, because if you got the UN stepping in, well, shit's definitely about to change. And well, while we're on the topic of these, I guess, standards and digitalized implementations coming in, obviously they're going to take some time to kind of come into full fruition and everything, but say 5-10 years from now, how do you view this whole new digitalized world?
Oh, 5 to 10 years from now. Oh yeah, I think it's gonna be awesome. I know there's a lot of conspiracy. There's a lot of conspiracy. Oh, they're going to track us. Oh, blah blah blah. But from like the endless amount of hours that I've done watching these, reading, watching these trade webinars, watching these CBDC conferences, seeing how they talk about privacy, seeing on you know, it's all about cutting costs. It's all about to eliminate this middleman fee, because like the current system, like what I like to say, like picturing the current banking system is like they have an engine that's got sand in their oil, that's literally running on the brink of collapse. And yeah, so what I see is in the future an interoperable, flawless, regulated internet of value. So, you know, one day regulations come in, shitcoins die out, and then the real utility networks that have real world value and use case that's being utilized by enterprises across the globe, that will be fully functioning. That will be running flawlessly. So what I see is, you know, a paperless trade finance world. You know, they've eliminated paper from global trade. It's allowed automation with smart contracts. There's no more of this manual labor to verify at every step of the way. I think, I think it's just one big money saver. That's what I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to be great, just because I know how much money this current system costs. This current system's robbing the citizens of every country, because we're paying the bankers to send money to do these transactions. You know, we've got trillions of dollars trapped in Nostro and Vostro accounts, sitting idle, not making any money. We have massive liquidity problems. And, you know, when the internet of value is going, we have flawless interoperability between regulated networks. It's going to be a whole different ballgame. And I just can't believe we are watching it unfold and get to be here, seeing it and figuring out how to make money before it actually happens.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. Like, it's very unlikely, like in my opinion at least, that we're ever going to see something like this again in our lifetimes, to where the scale of disruption is so huge to where literally everything is being officially digitized onto a blockchain, and now we're actually able to kind of participate in all these and form communities and reap kind of the future value that these networks are going to bring just by seeing the change before everyone else does.
Well, and like another big thing is what other time in our lives have we got to participate in global markets that have only been accessible to accredited investors? You know, like that's the coolest thing about these blockchain and DLT networks is we are able to participate in global trade without having to be a multi-million-dollar asset owner at the banks, you know, having it in at the bank, being able to get us into these things. And we're actually able to buy decentralized assets, sell decentralized assets, and trade without having an intermediary that we have to trust.
Yeah, exactly. I think
it's a game changer. Yeah.
I mean, just given the fact that this is only a $2 trillion asset class at the moment too, and it's expected to reach the same, I guess, valuation as many of these other asset classes, like where stocks are closer to 200 trillion at the moment. And basically us retail investors and just about everyone else got the same opportunity to begin investing in the space at pretty much zero, which it's just unheard of.
We're going from a worthless fiat system where the governments have printed endless amounts to trusted tokenized economies where, you know, DLT assets are just moving value, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds really simple when you put it that way, but if you really think about it, like, we've never been able to do anything like this before without having to verify it through a bank.
And I hate the banks because, like, I gotta spend $50 to send a payment that takes 5 to 7 business days completely untracked. Like, are you kidding me? And then, yeah, it's just like, oh yeah, this is hilarious.
Yeah, so, like, I think one of the things I'm most excited for is just kind of like being your own, I guess, peer-to-peer bank where you don't need to provide all this shit for just simple financial services. Like, for example, as a student myself, getting a student loan is quite a pain in the ass. Just having to, yeah, and it's like honestly, ever since I got into crypto, the only student loans I've taken is just through collateralizing my digital assets, which I think is a far more efficient process than the current banking system.
Yeah, 100%. And you know what else is hilarious? So I'm going to share this just because, like, so there's a really boring regulated company or whatever consortium called International Port Communities Systems Association, and I was watching this regulated webinar, and then like this slide comes across the screen, and I'm just like, yes. I'm like, yes, you got, like, there's 100 views on it. It's on YouTube here. And it's like, what are the categories? New technologies. This is like the highest port community, like they deal with 500 ports around the globe, okay? And here they're talking about, we are at the midst of the 4th industrial revolution, and technology is evolving faster than ever. Companies and individuals that don't keep up with some of the major tech trends run the risk of being left behind. Single windows, among others, should prepare and grasp the opportunity allowed by those new trending technologies. What's on there? Oh, of course, blockchain, AI, big data and analytics, Internet of Things, machine learning. So yeah, you know, it's really hilarious that, you know, mainstream media is completely silent, but in all these regulated things, it's all about a revolution. It's all about a revolution.
Yeah, it definitely starts to make you think. Like, we've been seeing it a lot with just some of the people who have spent most of their lives in mainstream media, but they're beginning to wonder, like, all I've been hearing these past 2 years is COVID. Like, there has to be other stuff going on with the world, right?
Exactly. Well, there is, but it's just like the toxicity of just what's being covered up because they control the narrative, right? So it's like just a bunch of people following the magic television box thinking that it's telling the truth, but it's not. And that's like that's the challenge, is how do you wake up the majority of society who use that to form their opinion? And that's, like, I'm just trying to make a change by creating educational content that anyone can sort of research themselves and do their own homework. And that's what I'm doing for a favor to give on to other citizens of the globe, because, you know, it's been all these years where the institutions and they've divided the citizens. They've created, you know, a great divide between all of us, and they've teamed up against us. And well, you know, what I'm trying to do is create citizens of the future by creating information about the future that people can actually research and be like, wow, this is actual regulated shit. Is not moon hype garbage that's like XRP 589. Oh, we're gonna hit a bull run this week, guys. Yeah, bull run this week. You know, invest. No, we share the fundamental research from our dedicated hours. I quit watching TV 2 years ago, so I strictly don't play video games. I don't watch TV. I literally read trade finance, regulated articles, and create content. And that's my gift to other people, is because if I don't do it, who the fuck else is going to do it? It's just going to get covered up, and then it's going to be too late by the time everyone figures it out.
Yeah, while we're on the topic of creating content and everything, how has, I guess, life been like for you ever since you've started creating content in this space, beyond just doing your own research, but kind of educating the citizens?
Yeah, so life's been good, a bit hectic. I find I love getting feedback saying, "Oh wow, you really opened up my eyes," or "Hey, I researched that and you changed my life," or like, "Wow," you know, I like hearing that. You know, some of my threads, like I know some of them take 3-4 hours. Some of the videos, God. So I balance, you know, family, work, and then research, and then I'm also balancing content creation. And I know, to be honest, the last 2 weeks I've had some massive burnout that I haven't had before. In all my Twitter career of creating content, I haven't had this type of burnout, so that I've just been taking a little bit of a step back on the content creation, and it's coming back to me. I'm pretty lucky that I work from the computer now. I did quit my automation technician job, and I'm working from the computer, doing websites and other things and trading, and that's keeping me busy. But I also do side jobs on the side. Yeah. But I love the content creation, because I know, you know, this is what I love doing, is I love creating these deep regulated research threads, and then I tag the ICC, I tag the ITFA, I tag all these regulated entities that are involved in it, because like they're probably like, what the hell? You know, this stuff we're covering up by not sharing it in the mainstream limelight, and then some random citizen of the future is tagging them, calling them out on their partnerships and saying, "Oh, you guys are changing the world, trade digitalizers of the future," you know. But yeah, I love content creating, because, you know, my whole Twitter account, people don't understand, is my whole Twitter account is basically like a research archive of information that people can go and use publicly by searching keywords. Go search keywords on my Twitter account. You'll find a lot of hidden gems, because, you know, I dedicate hours giving back to the community by creating threads, post it on the internet, and let it there, because then one day when it does go off, people that have actually paid attention, researching the regulated stuff, will have a feeling that it's going to change a lot of people's lives by it being out in the open. And that's my goal, is because I told my grandpa, he passed away in December 2021, so last year, a couple months ago, and he's been riding the crypto wave with us for the last 4 years, and I always kept them up to date. But I said, "Pa, I'm gonna change the world by helping other people see the stuff buried." So that's my motivation to create content, is because I can use my skill set with automation and schematics to help other people visualize the complex stuff that's not spoken about.
Yeah, man, and I'm sure your grandpa's real proud up there, seeing all the content you're creating, all the people you're helping out. I mean, you've heard what people are saying from our spaces, right?
Oh yeah, man. And like all my YouTube videos, you know, like people are commenting, "Oh my God, this is the deepest stuff I've ever seen." Like, oh yeah. So that makes me feel good, and I know people are proud of the family that's passed on. I got a couple people up there watching down. They're proud.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the main reason we started doing all this, like, most of the time, the shit we do here, we don't get paid. It's that we want everyone here to have an equal opportunity to understand the change that's happening, and just kind of provide that info out there. And if you do choose to research it, well, you'll probably be rewarded in the future. And if not, well, that's too bad, right?
Yeah, well, see, like that's the thing, you know, like it's some people think, oh, buy these shit coins and that's it, or you can research the innovative technologies that are building the future, right? And then, but like then you fall into this rabbit hole that I fell in 2 years, you know, like years ago, and it's like I've been stuck in it because it's like I've lost interest in everything else. It's like I've lost interest in watching TV, watching movies. It's because like I'm just too focused on building towards the future and living in the past, right? So it's like it's like research and things can change, but then you start getting a different perspective on how this whole, like I watched this, I remember 2 years ago, it was actually when I quit watching TV, I watched this YouTube documentary, and it was with Bill Still called Money Masters. It's about central banks and how that system was created by these rich 1% families, and then how it spread around the world. And, you know, it just really exposed from the 1600s to 1996 on how the financial system was built and structured and how broken it was. And it just was like, wow. It's like, wow, this is nuts. Definitely, it's a 3-hour watch, but it's definitely, you want to learn about the actual monetary system and how it was structured and how corrupt it is. That was a very good watch that really opened up my eyes.
Yeah, and to add on to the whole like quitting mainstream media, TV, video games, all that stuff, I mean, when you're in the space and kind of seeing the whole digitalization of everything and the internet of value and pretty much just a glimpse of the future, the shit in the present doesn't really entertain you all that much anymore, right?
No.
Yeah.
No,
you're getting a glimpse
like
at the future.
Sorry, go on.
No, I was just saying you're getting a glimpse at the future. Like, what else can excite you?
Yeah, exactly. And well, you know what's I find funny is nobody, like this quote really stuck to me, is a person doesn't question the life they're born into. And when you think about it, it's the brutally honest truth. So nobody really questions the life they're born into. And then I learned, so this is a really step back of just society in general. You know, the school system, when you look at the school system, and it doesn't teach the proper stuff. It doesn't teach what's going to build an entrepreneur. It's not going to teach, it creates more of a divide. It creates confusion. And now I'm thinking, oh, wow, this is really hilarious, because this education system that they created, the 1% want workers. They don't want competition. So now this explains why, you know, over the last 20 years, we've had such a downturn in the quality of education to our younger generations. You know, so we are starting to see that, no, it's so cookie cutter. It creates people wanting to hate learning. It's creating, you know, so now people leave school. They don't want to learn. They just want to work a paycheck to paycheck job, and they don't want to educate themselves on what's actually out in the world today. So I just see this huge divide now where I don't even want to take my kids to private school because of what I'm witnessing and how this is now transcending down to where it's just try and confuse kids. So now they have more workers in the general side of things. Because why aren't they teaching kids taxes? Why aren't they teaching kids be an entrepreneur, build your own business? Why aren't they teaching about credit card debt? Oh, you know, it's like toxic.
No, I totally feel that. And like, as a student at the moment myself, like I've really noticed that since I started college about 2 years ago, because you really kind of like, for what I'm trying to go into, which is just like macroeconomics and reading macro trends and stuff, which is kind of what I already do in here. But like through my time, I've really realized like most of the shit I'm learning just like doesn't matter relative to what I'm trying to do in the future. And it really made me think, like, it really feels like this just like within the school system all over the world. It's like they don't teach you the stuff that really applies to your life in the future that you mentioned, like taxes, thinking for yourself, even just like general entrepreneurship and investments. Like,
yeah,
I had to learn all that shit myself.
100%. No, exactly. And like me too. Everything that I've learned has blown past the stuff that I've learned in school in my 4 years of college. It's like it's completely irrelevant, the stuff that they teach. And like that's That's what I'm trying to figure out, is how do you show people that the system that has been created, that everyone trusts, is actually not trustable, because it's created to create paycheck to paycheckers, the bottom of the barrel. You know, how do you structure your kids to think outside the box? How do you create the next generation of deep thinkers? And that's what I'm trying to do, is create deep thinkers, so there's more of us compared to the mainstream potatoes that are just going with the flow and rolling down the hill there's meant to roll down.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, like, I don't want to fully discredit like the education system, because there are certain industries, if you're going into, where it is essential. Like if you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer or something, there's not really anywhere else you can go besides in academia, right?
Yeah.
But it's just like,
yeah, no, exactly.
Other factors in life, school just doesn't cover whatsoever, and it's like we're left on our own to learn it. And if you're lucky, you pick some up from your parents, but most times our parents didn't really get that information either, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. And well, that's the thing where you know, just going back to, nobody questions they just go with the flow. They live in their own bubble. They, you know, you tell people to research a global thing, and they're like, why the hell do I want to do that? I live in my little town. That's all I need to worry about. I don't need to worry about a bigger picture side of things. And then, you know, I see people get trapped in the materialistic debt cycle, where they're like, oh, I need a brand new truck. You know, they go buy a brand new truck. I know a guy that spent $100,000 on an F-150 gas, decked it all out, and he's literally in debt, $100,000, and he's working paycheck to paycheck to pay off his truck. So now his truck's depreciating. He's working to pay off this truck, and you know, if you would have had $100,000 in capital that you're using to make money for yourself by investing, passive incomes, business, you know, you're doing well for yourself. But now he's working paycheck to paycheck just to pay for this truck. He doesn't even own a house. And it's like this materialistic, that I need to look better than everyone else out there. I need to feel that I'm on a pedestal to make myself feel successful. Like I drive just an F-150 or a Ford Ranger, a 2006 Ford Ranger. I paid cash. All my money is in investments, making me money. I got, you know, that's what I like to focus on. I'm the complete opposite of a materialistic guy, and it's just, you know, I see so many people out of high school that they go buy brand new things, buy a brand new boat, buy brand new this, and it's like, man, like, what are you doing? Not. If you have a good job, like I say, a luxury vehicle is at the end of life. Like once you've set up your, you know, you've set up your passive incomes, you bought your house, you know, you bought your stuff and paid for, and then, you know what, then buy a brand new vehicle if you've got the money and you can do it. But seeing these guys that have no assets, no real world things, and they go, oh, I need a brand new shiny thing so I could feel an asset to society.
Yeah, exactly. Like, people kind of mess up the whole priorities thing, putting up wants before needs, and it's just sad like how common that's become in mainstream society.
Yeah.
But to further add on to the school system and what you said about learning about globalization and everything, I think part of the reason so many people don't care is partially due to the school system, because, like, for example, back when I first got out of high school, like, I absolutely hated every aspect of learning, just because everything I essentially learned was in school, and it was, I guess, in a sense, like, forced on us, to where we didn't have a choice whether we wanted to learn it or not. But hey, it's been a bit over an hour now. I figured now is probably the time we should let some people in here and ask any questions.
Yeah, come on up. If anyone's got some questions, you want to say something,
yeah, just unmute your mic and come on up.
Alright, well there you guys have it. A special look into another Tea Time exclusive. This time, it was an interview with Citizens of the Future, one of the first researchers in this space that I collaborated with. Always love bouncing ideas around with Citizens. Make sure to check out his content and research at UtilityTheory on Twitter and Citizens of the Future on YouTube. There's countless hours of connections around trade finance and regulations on his side. And as always, if you guys have been enjoying these exclusive episodes that I've been dropping lately, why not catch it live on Terramoon Ventures? These are all from my weekly show on there, Tea Time with Token, where we go over fundamentals, connections, and the whole bigger picture of the DLT space. They're every Monday at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, followed by a community AMA right after. And best of all, it's free to join, so be sure to drop by, tune in, and say what's up. Now, if you guys did want everything else we offer on Terramoon Ventures, such as Brian's trade alerts, his daily market updates, news alerts, even more weekly shows, and much more, be sure to use my discount code Tokenice for 25% off. That's TOKENICE, and everything will be right down in the description below. But anyways, that's about it for today. I hope everyone got something good out of it, whatever it may be, and I'll catch you guys next time. Be sure to stay safe and keep grinding. Peace.